The idea of just saying to myself, okay, I'm going to go 19 years and never have a drink again. That's just enough to send you off on a binge, isn't it? But you can do easy things, and you can get anywhere from here. You ever hear the line, a journey of 1,000 miles? What? Begins with one step. That's right out of the Tao Te Ching. That was Lao Tzu. It's so simple. So when you think about balance in your life, think like this about being in balance. You have a dream, and your dream is to live a life that goes a certain way, that looks a certain way, that feels a certain way. You have a dream that you would like to be able to attract prosperity into your life, that you would like to live a prosperous life. My favorite example, I did it on the PBS show, of the lady sitting next to me from San Francisco who was flying back from Maui after having just done a wedding. And I said to her, what do you do? And she said, I'm a photographer. And I said, oh, how's it going? And she said, well, I'm never going to get rich at it. Now, this is just a thought. Is it true? I don't know if it's true. How can that be? How can you know if that's true, that you're never going to get rich? You don't know. So I said to her, well, would you like to get rich? This was what I always ask when people ask. Well, she said, well, of course. She said, who wouldn't want to be rich? Everybody wants to be able to buy the things they want. We all want that. I said, so let me see if I understand. You would like to get rich. That's your dream. But what you offer up to that dream is that it'll never happen. That's out of balance. That's the kind of balance I'm speaking about. Not the kind of balance that allows you to do these kinds of things. The kind of balance that you begin to realize that there's a misalignment, if you will, between what it is that you are thinking and what it is that you offer up in the way of habits to make those dreams a reality. I call it principles for creating habits to match your desire. Listen to this quote. It's from Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said, want, like what you want, is a growing giant whom the coat of have was never large enough to cover. Want is a growing giant whom the coat of have was never large enough to cover. That is, what you want and what you have are completely and totally out of balance. And Lao Tzu says this to you through me. When you put your attention on what you intend to create and you stay aligned with the way, with the source from which you came, it will show up. It has to. It has to. So that all of the deficiencies, all of the things that you want but are not able to manifest, have not manifested yet into your life, all of it is not because the universe isn't working with you. It will. It's because you are not a vibrational match, an energetic match to what it is that you would like to create. And all today is about is learning to change the way you look at your life and understanding that the life that you're living will change just by your changing your opinion about it. It's so beautifully freeing to not be concerned any longer with whether or not what you would like to have is going to show up. If you would like to accomplish something, you must first expect it of yourself. And my question to you is, what do you expect of yourself? Do you expect to be able to perform miracles, to attract into your life the kind of prosperity that you are entitled to? Do you expect that you can manifest the kind of relationships that you would like? in order to be able to have these kinds of expectations for yourself, you have to make a dramatic change, a dramatic shift. You must change what's possible for you and what you believe is possible for you. The wake is a trail that is left behind. Can the trail that is left behind make the boat go forward? So now you have to look at your life and all of the things that have transpired in your life and ask yourself what's making your life go in the direction that it's going. Well, it's the present moment energy that is being generated by your mind, by your thoughts, that is making your... And one of the great ironies, I've been studying some of the teachings of a man named Bashar. Anybody in here ever hear of Bashar? Very, very interesting information. And he talks about these different dimensions of being. He calls them densities. So in this third dimension, or the third density, we have something called cause and effect. So you do this and it creates this, okay? And we have a tendency to believe that when I do this, it makes this happen. And then he said we move into the fourth density. I'm not going to go into all of this now, but into the fourth density, in which there is no cause and effect, in which every single moment is disconnected from the next moment, and that the present is not created by the past. This is just something to really ponder, because it's going to get really good when we get to the satsang. The present is not created by the past. The past is created by the present in the fourth density, in the fourth dimension. And that's the dimension where you leave the world of cause and effect and you realize that everything that ever happened to you up until this moment happened to you in the present. And in quantum physics teaches us that there is no such thing as time, and it does, that it's all one, especially in the world of spirit, in the world of God, it's all one. Then the past is something that we are creating now. And the idea, this exciting, exquisite idea that you can change the past by becoming something different in the present becomes a reality. Now, you're all saying, that's just too far out, I can't do that, that's just too weird, I can't do that. But the truth of it is, for 1/3 of your entire life here on this planet, while you are asleep, you're able to do just what I just described. You can create any past that you want. And you have left this dead thing laying on the bed. It's just, you've just left, life has left it, it's just there. And you're off someplace else, creating the past that you want, right? And creating the future that you want. Higher consciousness is something in which we can create a whole new way of being when we get past, and then he talks, that's the fourth density, or the fourth dimension, where you begin to realize that there is no cause and effect, that everything is just, one moment is not connected to the next. What you did a month ago is not connected to what you are doing today, even though this linear mind of yours has convinced you that it's absolutely why this happened. The fact is, in a quantum sense, everything is being recreated every moment, every moment. Your whole body is being recreated every moment, every moment. And now this may not seem like an important thing for you to know, but when you get a hold of this idea, it's like one of the elements that you need in order to reach a higher level of consciousness is you've got to give up your personal history. You've just got to give it up. I have a quote over here from Castaneda. He said, one day I finally realized that I no longer needed a personal history. And just like drinking, I gave it up. And that, and only that, has made all the difference in my life. If you can just give up this idea that what happened to you in the past is why you are the way you are, it's akin to saying that the thing that is moving this ship is the wake, which is nothing more than a trail that is left behind. And you can change that wake, which we don't think we can do. But remember, for 1/3 of your life, you're able to do it. And to me, higher consciousness is what Thoreau said. It's becoming a waking dreamer. It's what an alchemist is. Someone who can... An alchemist isn't someone who takes something that is bad and throws it out and then brings something good in. An alchemist is someone who takes something that is bad, like lead, and turns it into gold. It's what St. Francis said where there is hatred, let me bring love. Where there is darkness, let me bring light. In other words, become an alchemist. Being able to change what is into that which is aligned with your source of being.
Rumi said, this ancient Persian poet, brilliant, beautiful poet, he said, sell your cleverness and purchase bewilderment. It feels like bewilderment. It feels like awe. It feels like, even as I think about it now, I can feel myself tearing up behind my eyes, because only I know what is going on behind my eyeballs. It feels like so glorious and so sweet and so trusting, so knowing. You know, there's just this powerful knowing that you're not alone. There's this, that it's like there's a safety, there's a sense of that you're not alone. I had this great experience years ago. There's a friend of mine, he's on KTAR, a radio station in Phoenix. His name's Pat McMahon, Irish Catholic guy. And Mother Teresa is to be his guest, right, on the same day that I'm his guest. So we're in the studio, and Mother Teresa comes in. Now she's about 4'10", maybe weighs 80 pounds. And she's there to talk about a homeless shelter that she slept in the night before, to tell the people of Phoenix about this homeless shelter. And I'm there to talk about a book that I don't know which one it was. It was 10, 15 years ago, so Pat tells Mother Teresa, "Is there anything that I can do for you?" And you can imagine the bewilderment and the awe that this is an Irish Catholic guy from, living in Phoenix, and Mother Teresa, a saint, is coming there, and he's just bewildered. He's beyond bewildered. He just doesn't know what to do with himself. He's just so honored, and he says, "Is there anything I can do for you? Is there anything I can do?" And she said, "No." She said, "I just came here to talk about the homeless shelter." He said, "But Mother Teresa," he said, we have a 50,000 watt clear channel station that goes in every direction." And it was like he's got his ego involved. Like we can help you to raise a lot of money for your work and your mission in Calcutta. And she said, "No, I'm not interested in raising money or your radio station getting a." She said, "I just want to talk about the homeless shelter, that's all." And he's exasperated. And finally he's down on his knees. Really. And finally she says, "Stand up." She said, "You seem so serious." She said, "There is one thing that you can do." And he just stood up and he said, "Well, what is it? I'd do anything." She said, "Well, tomorrow morning," she said, "get up at 4 a.m. And she said, and go out onto the streets of Phoenix and find someone who's living there, who believes that he's alone, and convince him that he's not. That's what you can do." And behind the feeling we're talking about here is this feeling of aloneness for so many people who are lost in the world, that I don't have like a connection to something greater than myself. I've come to believe that who I am is what I do, and what I have, and what other people think about me, and who I am is separate from everybody else. and who I am is separate even from what I'd like to attract into my life, that I'm separate from all the things that are missing, and I'm separate even from God, and that there's a place within me that knows that I'm not separate from any of that, that if there's no place that God is not, or that source is not, or the energy that provides, that is always giving and always creating is not, if there's no place that it is not, then it has to be in me. I know that. And if there's no place that it's not, and it has to be in me, it has to be also in everything that is missing in my life, or that I think is missing. It's there too. So that in some mysterious, invisible way, I'm already connected to everything that's missing in my life through something called spirit. And when I recognize that I'm not here as this human being having a spiritual experience, when you recognize that your essence is that you are a spiritual being having a human experience, not the other way around. When you really get that, I mean, not that you can say it and it's clever, but when you know that who you are is this essence, you don't see, there's no other, there's no them. There's nothing outside of you. You're connected to everyone and everything. As the Native Americans, you'd say that no tree has branches so foolish as to fight among themselves.
How can you surrender and let go and become detached from the outcome and the stuff that you seek after in your life? How can you do that and still have the things that you want come into your life? How does that paradox work? One of the things that I have learned in my own speaking is to let go of the outcome, to be unconcerned with the reaction and what's in it for me, and indeed to just surrender. And in my meditation before I speak, I always repeat the mantra endlessly over and over again, and I find myself doing this more and more in my life, and something that I urge you to do. I ask the question, how may I serve? Just, how may I serve? How may I serve? How may I serve? There are 1,000 people there. How may I serve them? It's like getting the focus off of what's in it for me, and how do I look, and whether I say the right thing, and whether people like what I say, and whether they buy things that I have or whatever, and instead like letting all of that go, just letting that go, and getting the focus of your life, the centeredness of your life on this business of serving. And the irony of it is that when you get to that point where you're able to do it and let go of that outcome, all of the stuff that you chased after and worked so hard for and figured you had to have back here begins to chase after you and show up in your life. And it isn't you're no longer on the treadmill. It's like a surrendering. And so that's what I do when I come on stage. And it's almost as if God says to me, it's like, as long as you stay on purpose, you'll never stumble. And you'll know what to say. And when you get off of that, and you shift your alignment away from that, then you won't be able to do what you're doing. And the same thing happened in the writing of this Real Magic. For the first time in my life, I experienced what I have come to call automatic writing, where I left home and went off to Maui and sat down and in 8 weeks' time just produced this book without any struggle whatsoever, not one moment of struggle. And it just seemed to be there, and it seemed to flow. And I can type, like when I sit down and type a letter or a contract or anything that I might have to put out on a typewriter, I'm one of these kind of typists. And I just look around. I can do it rather quickly, but I have never had the formal training in typing. But when I write at this little typewriter, I can go along and close my eyes and write at 70 and 80 words a minute when you get into that automatic. And I can't tell you how I do that, because I had completely let go. And I wasn't concerned with whether the editors liked it, how it came out, whether or not it was a bestseller, whether people were going to buy it, whether the reviews were going to be. Nothing. It was like very, very peaceful. And it's a very peaceful place that I'm asking you to look at and get to in your own life.
I learned to do it about 10 years ago when I really honed this, and that was when I was speaking in Houston. There were about 3,500 people who had all paid a lot of money to come and hear me, and it was an evening with Wayne Dyer. And I had all my notes all arranged in exactly the way I wanted to, and everything was just exactly perfect. I was backstage doing the pacing that you do before you go on, and the meditating and the right. breathing, and just getting yourself relaxed and your sort of divine guidance that you're seeking. And I realized that I didn't have my notes. They were gone.
Yes.
And they were back in the hotel room, which was 30 minutes away, and I was going on in 10 minutes. So I walked out on stage without any notes for the first time, and I surrendered. In that 10-minute period of time, I just said, all right, you know what you're doing, and you know how to do it, and you're good at this, and you're here for a reason, and there are 3,501 people in this room, and you're the one who's speaking, and 3,500 have paid to come and hear you. There must be a reason for that, and so get on purpose, get off of your outcome, get off of how well you do, get off of how much money you're being paid, get off of all of that, and get on to what are you here for?
Yeah.
And you're here to improve the quality of life for somebody else. That's all you can do. When you leave this planet, the measure of your life won't be in what you accumulated. Yeah. It will be in what you gave. Since you can't get anything anyway, it's in giving. So I surrendered, and that was the beginning for me of surrendering. I've never used notes since in my life. It's not that I'm not prepared. I meditate before, and I know what I want to do. See, what you have to learn is that I read a wonderful line when I was down in Australia by an actress who was talking, and she concluded it with, she said, if you want to make God laugh, tell her your plans. See, God's plan works, essentially, and yours doesn't. Basically. It's like becoming a spiritual being really means shifting away from your plans and allowing yourself into this divine perfection.
Being, to me, means seeing the greatness and the uniqueness in you and never letting anybody else convince you to the contrary. When people ask me, come on, you're always talking about being up and you're always positive and so on, you mean to tell me that you're always that way? I say, yeah, I really am. And it isn't because I'm out there doing something in an artificial way. It's an authentic response to my having gotten the junk out of me. And the junk is the way that I used to think, the way that I used to think. Think for a moment, if you can visualize right here, a clock, a big clock. And the hands on the clock go from 1 to 12. The clock starts right out here with the minute hand, and it goes over towards the 3, the hour hand, minute hand. And that's the time in your life when you are moving away from yourself, from your true self. That's the time when you are trying to put other people down, trying to prove that you're bigger and better than somebody else, trying to make yourself right all the time, as opposed to being with somebody else. It's like you're moving away, and a lot of people spend a lot of time moving away from their true self, because your true self is this little child, is this beautiful little child inside of you that has only love and acceptance for everything in the world, and no dis-ease, no absence of ease. You move away towards the 3, and then you move down here this way, and you're still moving away from yourself until you hit the 6. The 6 is the point in your life, symbolically, metaphorically here, when you are the furthest away from yourself that you can be. It's the low point in your life. It's the point where many people break down, or many people break down their relationships, or they feel full of despair, they feel full of hatred, whatever it may be. And a lot of people die then. A lot of people are put into hospitals then. A lot of people have to really seek out therapy then, and so on. And when you're at that 6. There's another part of the clock that goes from 6 to 12 that I think of as living in the light. And this is when, and see, this clock hand never can go back. It can't go back. It can only go this way. It only goes this way, as does life. It only goes this way, forward. In this period, this place between 6 and 12, that's when you start coming back to yourself. That's what enlightenment is. That's the pathway to enlightenment. When you send out that stuff that is destroying you, that is killing you in one way or another,
And you move yourself back over here, and eventually you get yourself all the way back. This is the light over here. This is the place where you can't go back. You'd be tempted. You might be tempted to steal. You might be tempted to use anger. You might even slip a little bit, and you catch yourself. I can just not too long ago, there was we got a problem with our sprinkler in my home. One of the sprinkler heads is off, and if you ever seen that happen, you get a gusher going up there. And I've been wanting to get that thing replaced for the longest time. And I'm walking out of the bank, and there's a sprinkler head right there in front of the bank. Now, I practically own this bank, okay? So I'm going to go there every day, and I do a lot of business with this bank. And I'm looking at this sprinkler head, and I think, all I have to do is just unscrew this thing. It wasn't on or anything. They'll replace it tomorrow morning. It's 98 cents or whatever. So I actually get down there, and I start turning the sprinkler. And then I start thinking, do I want this karma? Do I want to steal? Do I want to take? I know it's only a 99, and if I went into the bank, they'd probably give me one anyway if I asked them. And then I just turned it back, and I said, if I want a sprinkler head, I'll go and buy one for myself. This doesn't belong to me. It was just like a split second of weakness there or whatever, but it illustrated to me that I can't go back there. I could never. And there was a time in my life when I could have done that. I can be absolutely frank with that. I could do that. I can't go back there anymore. That's where you start. That's the place to start. Because when you get all of that out, when that's all gone, and I mean gone, and it only comes about as a result of the way that you think, so it's just changing around your approach to life, the way that you think in life, when that starts to go away, what you've become filled up with is what your natural self is, which is this loving, accepting, not fighting the universe, but instead living in it and going with the flow and all of the kinds of cliches that you've heard 1,000 times. That's the metaphor there. And you see, every time you try to go back, you can't do it. You can't do it.
Whatever the question, love is the answer. I once gave a refrigerator repairman several of my books and tapes. The repairman asked, "How do you ever expect to make any money when you give away all your stuff?" I replied, "When the day comes that you don't have to ask me that question, you'll have the answer. The more you give away, the more you have." It's a paradox, but it truly works. Nothing is formed, nothing dies. Everything is simply in transition. And that includes you, who you really are. You're eternal, you're changeless, trapped in a form that is in transition. Here's a little lesson in logic. If you control your thoughts, and your feelings come from your thoughts, then you control your feelings. Keep that in mind always. Whatever feelings you're having, whatever emotions you're experiencing, they came from a thought. And you control your thoughts. And if you don't believe that you control your thoughts, then you send whoever it is that is controlling your thoughts to me. And I'll treat them. And you'll get better. That's how absurd it is. If you only believe what you see, then you're limited to what's on the surface. If you only believe what you see, why do you pay your electric bill? You've never seen electricity, and yet you know it's there. There was a time when scientists didn't believe in microscopic life. It wasn't the invention of the microscope that gave us microscopic life. That's always been there. Don't be limited in your life by the technology of your observation methods. If you are to change a habit, you must be the treatment. The treatment isn't something that happens to you. It's something that you are. No one can create anger or stress within you. Only you can do that by virtue of how you process your world. No limit people don't say, "I'm going to get it all." They say, "I am it all already, but I can grow." No one knows enough to be a pessimist. No amount of guilt can ever change history.
No amount of guilt can ever change anything. Your guilt is a waste of time. Feeling guilty about the outcome of the Peloponnesian War isn't going to change it. This morning is just as over as the Peloponnesian War. Blame is a neat little device that you can use whenever you don't want to take responsibility for something in your life. Use it, and you will avoid all risks and impede your own growth. Make a personal commitment to do what you love and love what you do today. Be the cure. Don't look outside yourself for it. If prayer is you talking to God, then intuition is God talking to you. Listen to those inner signals that help you make the right choices, no matter what anyone thinks. Trust your intuitive voices and go with them. Learn to find the blessing in pain. Practice observing the pain rather than owning it. Loving sacredly means loving what is, even if you don't comprehend the deeper meaning behind it. Behavior is a much better barometer of what you are than words. I am grateful to all those people who said no. It is because of them that I did it all myself. Every obstacle is an opportunity. Every obstacle is a test. Keep in mind that life gives exams. Emotions are choices.
And where you place your attention is what you will manifest for yourself. And in reading the Kabbalah before going over to Marco Island to write Your Sacred Self, the thing that I got most out of the Kabbalah was this. It says in there that our purpose in being here on this planet is to move from one level to the next, from the physical level to the spiritual level. That's what we show up here for. That's what it means to be a spiritual being having a human experience. That we are here to move from one level to the next. And in order to be able to move from one level to the next, you must generate the energy to do so. Now, energy is a very key concept, and this is another one of those weird little things. But I suggest to you that you not only have a physical body, but you also have an energy body. And that energy body is with you, it's a double. And that body double is with you at all times. It surrounds you in a shape that is actually capable, you are capable of a great seeing. How do you say it, Marcella? Natoihe, a great seeing. And when you see this energy body, you will see that it is assembled around you in something called an assemblage point that is out back here someplace. And that assemblage point of energy is what determines your agreement with reality. And your agreement with reality cannot be shifted until you move that assemblage point of energy. And you can indeed move that energy. And when you are able to shift that energy, that is who you are, and shift it, you can experience and create and write a new agreement with reality which allows you to make a somersault into the unimaginable. And energy is not something that is visible. This planet is soaring through space. It is orbiting. It weighs trillions and trillions of tons. It is being held up and moving forward and circling all the time. And something is holding it up, and something is making it spin, and something is making it move, something called energy that is also flowing through you. And everything on this spinning oblate spheroid. It's all moving and spinning. And you know that from your science classes. And that energy is also, that invisible energy is something that you have, an etheric energy body that you can learn to tap into. Shift that energy around. There's different ways of doing it. And as you learn to do it through meditative practices, you start to have a natoihi, a great seeing, an epiphany, satori, an instant awakening.
And when you are able to generate the energy, and the Kabbalah says, not only do you have to generate an incredible amount of energy in order to be able to go from one level to the next, but this is the aha, this is the eureka. Ready? That the only way, according to the Kabbalah, that you can generate the energy to move to the higher level is through a fall. A fall. F-A-L-L. I was a high jumper in the track team in high school. They set the bar up here, 5'6". I'm white, okay? White guys can't jump. I run up to the bar, I get down as low as I can, and in the process of getting down low, falling, I generate the energy to propel myself over the bar. That's how you high jump. In order to move from a lower level to a higher level, you have to fall to generate the energy. The same thing the Kabbalah says is true for all of us in our lives, and that every advancement in spiritual consciousness is preceded by a fall. And the ego is terrified of a fall. Because the ego will die if you find God. The ego is that false idea that you are separate, better, more important, prettier, more stronger, wealthier, better, all of those kinds of things that you have to constantly keep proving yourself to. Your higher self says, just be at peace. Your ego says, more is better. Your ego says, there is no peace in more is better. And if it promotes peace, then it's your higher self. If it promotes turmoil, it's your ego. So the ego just sort of likes to promote a sort of steady river of misery. Because it knows, the ego knows that if you fall, that's when you will find God. And who doesn't when you fall? I mean, a breakup, an accident, a stroke, a heart attack, a bankruptcy, a divorce, a separation, a loss of a job. Anything that constitutes, quote, a fall makes you a gentler, kinder, more God-like, more Christ-like, more Buddha-like soul. And when you then go there, you generate the energy to move to the next level. So why aren't we taught, why are we in a paradigm that falls are bad? Instead of being in a paradigm that says a fall gives me the opportunity to generate the energy I need to get to the next level, and I probably can't get there without it. William Blake put it in poetry in Songs of Innocence better than I can ever say it. He said, man was made for joy and woe. And when this we rightly know, through the world we safely go. Joy and woe are woven fine, a clothing for the soul divine. And everybody you ever known who's had an accident, who's had a breakup, who's had one of these things happen to them, that they generally find themselves in a higher place. And if you can get there now without the need to have a trauma, you can begin to experience all of the things that are happening in your life as part of this divine intelligence. And they no longer then become part of suffering. As Nisargadatta says, you do not suffer. Only the person you imagine yourself to be suffers. Who you are. And when you learn to live there, you can just witness the suffering. And it no longer even is that. It's very wise words from the Kabbalah.
I'd like to see you change from this thought. Change from seeing yourself as separate to seeing yourself as connected to everyone and everything in the universe. Our ego tells us that we are separate, that who we are is this body that we have, and everybody out there is separate from me. Nothing has been more profound and more powerful and important for me than this verse of the Tao Te Ching. This idea that we are all one. that all of us emanated from the same source. And by doing so, by emanating from the same source, we need to see ourselves as connected to every single being, every single person, every single flower, every single tree, every single animal. If you can see yourself in everyone, we're all connected. It makes about as much sense to me to have a smoking section in a restaurant as it does to have a peeing section in a swimming pool, right? Oh, no, kids, no, don't pee over here. We pee over here. Does that make any sense? The Native Americans, one of my favorite quotes, I've used it many, many times. The Native Americans would say, "No tree has branches so foolish as to fight among themselves." No tree has branches so foolish as to fight among themselves. We are all branches on a tree called humanity. When you read the Tao, when you read this idea about changing these thoughts and changing your life, you're going to see endless verses that speak to the absurdity of the idea of you having an enemy. The idea that you and anyone else on this planet is an enemy. In the Tao it says, I and enemy cannot exist in the same sentence. And he said, even those who go to war, the ones who will triumph in war are those who go to war without an enemy. And they will treat every victory in war not as something to celebrate, but as a funeral, as an indication that we haven't reached the highest place within ourselves to see that even those people that we judge to be our enemy are really connected to us. And it says in the Tao that a bad man is a good man's job, and a good man is a bad man's teacher. A good man is a bad man's teacher. So finding that and seeing that, listen to verse 10. Carrying body and soul and embracing the one, can you avoid separation? One who heeds this power brings the Tao to this very earth. This is the primal virtue. This was so helpful to me as I thought about it. Remember, I spent 4.5 days on each one of these verses. And in each one of those 4.5 days, I wasn't writing. I wrote the last 4 or 5 hours of those 4.5 days. For 4.5 days, I took that verse and I went out into the world and I looked at everyone that I encountered, everyone that I saw, and I tried to see myself in them. The person that was, dressed differently than I would dress, the person who was not as attractive, the person who was very old, the person who was very young, the person who used language particularly that was possibly offensive. When I would look out there and I would practice not judging, because the only difference between a flower and a weed is a judgment, isn't it? It's just a judgment. It's just a judgment. And if we want to end violence in our lives and in our society, we have to learn to change our thoughts.
So you see, there's two ways to look at virtually anything. One is the violent way and one is the peaceful way. That's the yin and the yang of the universe. The violent way is to analyze something. When you take something and analyze it, you tear it apart. You break it open. You crush it. You dissect it. You pull it all apart and see what's in it. So that's what people do with a relationship. Analyzing is a very violent intellectual act, if you've never thought of that. And it's a victimizing stance. It's violent intellectually in that it tears apart. Now, the opposite of analyzing something is synthesizing, that is, bringing together, looking at what holds it together. What are the similarities? What is it that we have in common here? And how much do we enjoy each other? What are we for? If you're in a relationship, and you understand that what you think about is what expands, or as you think, so shall you be, is true, and you're thinking about what is wrong or what is missing in your partner, then for you, your experience of them will be what is missing or what is wrong, because what you think about is what expands. So what you want to do is get focused in your relationships on what you are for. What do you like about that person? And observe that. Unless you want the negativity to expand, then focus your mind on that, because whatever your mind is on will be your experience of them. You can't get behind your eyeballs and be that person and be your spouse. You only have your mind to experience your spouse with. And if your mind is on what's wrong, then that's what will be your experience. If your mind is on what's missing, on what you don't like, then that will be your experience. And that's what analyzing a relationship almost always is about. You do this, and I don't like that, and this is wrong, and then that becomes your experience on it. When I look at my wife after being gone on a business trip or whatever, I look at the divineness that is in back of her form. I look at the thoughts, the beauty that is in the invisible part of her, and I'm just grateful that she's there, rather than thinking about all the things that she's done that I don't like or that we argued about or whatever. I don't want that to continue to expand. And so I don't want to analyze our relationship. I just want to love her and be loved for what we are. Because, as Robert Frost said, you love the things you love for what they are. Not for what they ought to be or what they used to be or what they can do for you, but for what they are. When you fall in love with someone, you fall in love with what they are. You don't look in their eyes and say, you know, you're really beautiful, but if only your eyes were a different color, then I could like you so much better. Or if only you were a little taller or a little shorter or your hair were a little this or that. You don't do that. You just go, ah. You're just so gaga in love because you are loving what they are. And then you get into a relationship and mature the relationship, and now your mature relationship is, you know, you should have done this, and if only you did that, and that's what destroys it. What you want to do is maintain that I love you for what you are, and we don't have to analyze it. When you're falling in love, you don't analyze anything. You just simply enjoy being with each other. Arguing isn't worth defending. I know that people do it. I do it sometimes. I see it as a weakness when I do it. It is not worth defending. Usually the person doing the most talking in the argument is the one who's wrong, who is trying to overstate their case. And I just was reminded of a cartoon that was in the New Yorker, where a fellow said, I'll tell you why I'm yelling. I'll tell you why I'm yelling. I'm yelling because I'm wrong. And it's that kind of admission that you finally realize right in the middle of it that, yeah, I'm raising my voice because I don't know what else to do. And I've just realized that I've been arguing isn't worth defending. Arguing really is saying, you know, if only you were more like me, then I could like you much better. That's behind almost every argument that we have. If only you could process the world the way I process it, we wouldn't be having any of these problems.
And here's the toughest test for non-attachment. I leave you free to be yourself, to think your thoughts, indulge your tastes, follow your inclination, behave in ways that you decide are to your liking. How's that for a challenge? And so what most of us do in our relationships and why they are not as successful as we would like them to be is that we become attached and we tell ourselves that if this person behaves in a way that I find offensive, then I can't be happy. I make my happiness, my fulfillment dependent upon those people that I love being what I think that they should be. And detachment doesn't mean being a victim. It just simply means I know that I can make my life fulfilled and happy by having a mind that is open to everything and attached nowhere.